Tape Deck Media.
Good morning, Ruddle Maniacs. Welcome back to another episode of Ruddle Me This. I am, as always, your host, Ruddle Taylor Ruddle. Hope you had a good weekend, and I hope you've got an exciting week ahead of you. I've got a great episode for you today. We are doing the 10 Tiny Joys with a comedian from Dunedin called Molly Force. I recorded this interview while I was down in Dunedin for the Dunedin Fringe Festival in 2024. And as always, the conversation ended up going for a lot longer than I was expecting it to, so I'm thinking we might reduce the format of 10 Tiny Joys to 5 Tiny Joys. I actually don't have a lot to plug before we get into this interview, as March tends to be a little bit of an off-season for us at Can Do Comedy. We've noticed in the past that attendance has waned a little bit for our comedy shows, so we don't push ourselves to go too hard in the paint during March. But as always, in case we announce something unexpected, you can follow us on Can Do Comedy on Facebook. That's where all of our event pages go. Although one event that I am very excited to announce, it is going to be on the 4th of May 2024. I am going to be recording my 1-hour special from about 2 years ago called Rudzilla. This was about my time in Japan, getting started in stand-up comedy, a little bit of the culture shock, and all of the things, like one could call them misadventures that I encountered while trying to get out of my comfort zone a little bit and become a more outgoing person to mixed results. So we're going to be recording that at the Canterbury West Coast Cancer Society function room. They have graciously allowed me to use that for the recording, and we're going to be donating 25% of the tickets sold to the Cancer Society. So as well as helping me record my first proper, full-length comedy special, you are going to be donating some money to cancer research and all the other good stuff that the Cancer Society do. So again, follow my social media to keep an eye out for that, and make sure you set aside the 4th of May at 7 or 8 o'clock. I haven't quite announced it yet, but check the Facebook page. Other than that, we always have the Luff Cellar on Tuesdays and Thursdays, except for the last Thursday of the month, 7 o'clock, $10 entry, and my weekly quiz night at 6:30 at Moi Moi on Wells Street. We also have on the first Friday of the month at 8 o'clock at Winniebago's Rangiora, I do a Beats by Bingo show, which is a musical bingo if you've never heard of that before. So that is basically going to be our events for the foreseeable future. I'm going to try not to plug those too much, but as always, just follow me on Facebook to see all the event pages. I've also finally decided that I am sick of trying to upload videos to Instagram and Facebook, as well as YouTube. I'll do some, but not a whole bunch of them. So if you want to see any video content that I'm going to be putting out into the future, please follow me on TikTok at Taylor Ruddle Comedy. That is basically the only place I'm going to be posting video content from now on, because Meta Business Suite is just an absolute pain to upload things, and then it doesn't publish them, so they go out at the wrong times, and it's just a nightmare. So I never thought I'd say this, but TikTok is actually my favorite video platform at the moment. I'm posting 3 clips a week. On Wednesdays, I post a skit. On Fridays, I post potato chip reviews from around Christchurch. And then on Sundays, I post a stand-up comedy clip. Alrighty, we got through the plugs. I appreciate you sticking with me to this far. Let's get on with the interview. So please, faithful listeners, welcome to the show, Molly Force, everyone. Hello, Molly. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Taylor. I'm stoked to be here.
Yeah, it's cool. I think we sort of put this together a bit of a spur of the moment. We thought, while I'm down for the Fringe, I'll see if I can interview some people, and you were available. So thank you for joining me.
Yeah, of course.
So I guess we could just sort of get into the... Do you want to talk a little bit about, because you're a stand-up comedian in Dunedin, do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure as you know, and listeners can hear, I'm not from Dunedin originally. Yeah. I'm American, and I came over 5 years ago. And I've been doing comedy 2 years in May. Doing as many gigs as I can.
Did you start when you were here for the first time?
I did, yeah. So I've always been a huge fan, and I started coming to a lot of shows, and then I was like, I think I could maybe write a couple jokes, and I did the jump, and now I'm addicted.
Excellent. Who had you been watching in your lead up to getting into it?
I'm quite into the Kill Tony podcast. And
Oh,
was
that's
like,
right, yeah.
Yeah, it was quite inspiring for me,
Yeah.
to see. I think that's a nice opportunity to see the like range of styles and skill sets
Yeah.
of people who get into it. And I think that, in some ways, there's peaks and valleys to it, but I think it makes it look more accessible. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, like if this person is confident enough to try this, I can definitely try and write
Yeah.
something myself.
It's the Kill Tony format's interesting because they only give them about a minute to impress them or something, don't they? And I've heard that if you're in like Austin, that has completely changed how people do stand up now because they only need one good minute to like I don't know if people can get famous off of Kill Tony, but
Yeah.
it's like when I remember hearing, this is a little bit inside baseball for the listeners, but I remember hearing in LA when everyone was getting sitcoms off of stand-up sets, everybody's stand-up routine was like, my dad does this and my mum does this and my little sister, and it was all just trying to get a sitcom together. So it is funny to see what the vehicle that makes it, like how everyone's stand-up changes depending on like what they're trying to get out of it. So
Yeah.
that's been, I think, the latest one that I can think of would be Kill Tony, to that sort of move the needle or whatever they say. Do you think you would ever try and get on yourself?
I think so. Like if I had the opportunity, I'm actually heading back to the States in June, and I've like played with the idea of trying to pop over.
Yeah.
But it's hard to justify because it's like, you
1
know,
minute.
1 minute, like potentially absolutely crush my entire spirit.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess you've got to risk it for the biscuit, as they
That's
say. So,
true.
like,
Yeah.
it could be worth trying.
Yeah.
Oh, that's delightful. I hope if you do decide to do it, I hope it goes well. Let's get into your 10 tiny joys. So
Yeah.
you've taken to this like a duck to water. You understood the assignment. I don't think I really gave you much of an instruction. Was it hard to come up with your list?
It took me some time. It's a really fun thought exercise. Like I've been giving it to my friends as well, being like,
Oh,
yeah,
excellent.
like give this a try. 'Cause
Yeah.
it is nice to. I don't think we think about the small things that bring us joy
Yeah.
much, and I think this is a beautiful format. Actually,
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, that's great. I did an interview. I think the interview is dropped by now with Pia from Plains FM, as a local access radio station in Christchurch, and she was saying that she was going through a lot of renovation stress, and so it was quite healing, I think, for her to remind herself of all the things she actually does get joy out of in life.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good format. So I guess we could just dive straight into it. So your first one is winning fake arguments in the car.
Yeah.
Which I think is going to be very relatable to most people. Do you have anything you want to expand on that, or maybe add some context? Or
Yeah. Sometimes even when a situation has gone well and I've dealt with it in like a mature and adult manner, I like to get in the car and let out all of my spiteful demons. And so honestly, if there was recordings, if anyone was recording in my car, they would hear some really horrible things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to imagine if it had gone worse, what I could have said.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is this like, what kind of scenarios are you playing through in your head? Is it like work things or like with your social life? What kind of arguments do you play? Do you defeat people in your car?
Most recently, I'm a mature student, so I'm 25, but I'm a second year in uni. And so all of my peers are usually between like 18 to 20 at the moment. And my latest ones is like, I'm quiet and I'm professional at university, but I don't think anyone knows like the darkness inside. And I keep that on a tight leash. And so I'll deal with things maturely and it'll go away, and then I'll get into my car and let out all of the darkness.
That's quite noble of you, that you don't subject them to that. So is it just the generation gap, or the more like maturity gap, I guess, of you and your classmates that you find frustrating?
I don't know if it's exactly a maturity gap. I think lately, especially, I've been feeling extra foreign.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like I've been here for 5 years and I do consider New Zealand my home.
Yeah.
But I think lately I've been like, I think there are some fundamental differences in the way that I was like brought up to think and behave and like even relate to education. But I think also that I think the age does play into that as well.
Very interesting. I had a moment of noticing a difference in culture. It was Tuesday night. I was hosting a pub quiz, and this Canadian couple came up to me and they were asking about like, how do we get a table in this place? And I kind of just said to them, I'll go and sit wherever. And like, Kiwi couple would just go, all right, thanks, and then just like shuffle off. But they started telling me about like, oh, geez, it sure is cold here at this time of the year. And they're like, we're from Canada, so we know cold. And then like the woman starts telling me about like, oh, we've both been sick, and like they're just like telling me everything about their trip that they've been on. And I was like, wow, like they're not even like American, but like they're still way chattier than Kiwis would be in that situation.
Yeah.
So like that is fascinating because like I also how long did you say you've been in New Zealand for? Sorry,
I've been here for 5 years.
5 years. Like this was the thing we used to experience. It was almost like the what is that bell? The Dunning-Kruger. You know that like competence. How confident you feel when you've been doing something. You have a spike of confidence in the beginning, and then a sharp drop, and then a gradual rise. A bunch of us were living in Japan, and I don't know if it's that exact curve, but we did notice that at a certain point, you get really frustrated with the clash of culture and the way of communicating with people. Like I used to get quite frustrated with the way people wouldn't say what they're thinking because it's very like you don't really be open in public about thoughts. And I remember just like being like, oh, how is our communication style like this different? So
Yeah.
I can imagine there's things like that. Does anything kind of jump out at you for the education? Because that's really interesting to learn about, that there's a educational mindset difference.
Yeah, I think that I'm trying to think of a good example that doesn't make me sound like resentful, because I'm not. I love it here.
Yeah.
I think with the openness thing, I think that Kiwis are very nice, very nice, but I think that there's a level of openness that isn't there.
Yeah.
So this is in less of a degree that you would have been experiencing in Japan.
Yeah.
But it is quite jarring for me, and I've found like I am 100% open book, borderline too much, and I'm working.
Right.
But I think that applies to education as well. Yeah. I'm studying teaching, and so I want to know all the things, and I want to delve deeper, and I feel like sometimes I'm like balancing wanting to make sure that other people have the opportunity to delve in, but also being like, okay, like I also paid for this education and this is how I learn. And so, I don't know. I mean, either it's like a cultural thing or a maturity thing I'm still sort of trying to figure out, but either way I'm feeling for it.
I think a little bit of that is the mature student aspect, because we had 2 or 3 mature students when I was studying graphic design, and they by far and away were the ones that would raise their hand for questions more than anyone else. Yeah. And I suspect a little bit of that might be because you've made the decision to go back and study, whereas I imagine a lot of your classmates probably just finished high school and it was like, oh, I guess I'll go to university because my parents want me to. And so to them, it's not as like... maybe it's not as conscious of a decision, so they're just happy floating by, but you're like, I'm gonna get my money's worth out of this professor.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna squeeze all the blood out of the stone I can get.
I think too, when we go into the cultural side, we don't really have tall poppy syndrome in the States. Yeah. Like I think individuality is really celebrated, at least how I was brought up.
100%.
And that is not, I'm not saying it's not celebrated here, but what I will say is that like I think that
there's definitely an element of
because I didn't grow up being afraid of standing out. I come off as a real a-hole. I think sometimes because I'm just
But I think there's a real keep your head down. You were kind of raised to like you would listen to like the rugby players give their interviews, and they would just give this mumbling, "Oh yeah, it's been pretty good." Like just thank God, and you're just like, wow, this. And then you watch some of the stuff that the NFL is the big sport over there. They'll give these big, like, there's a guy at the moment calling himself the people's tight end, which is like a reference to The Rock or something.
Oh
and
my
like,
goodness.
So the I think it's like top down, right? It's because we're sort of I guess we came from the British stiff upper lip thing, whereas America like very deliberately bucked a lot of American.
There was like a whole war about that.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe that's it, is because we're from that stock. But that is really interesting to think about. This is the cool thing about this podcast, is like it goes places you wouldn't expect. So we'll move on to number 2. Room temperature fruit. This is an interesting one. I'm a bit like that with sushi. I don't like refrigerated sushi. I like it when it's room temperature, which is probably not a good thing for my health. But what is some of your favorite fruits to have at room temperature?
I like a nice room temperature melon.
Oh,
like a rock
interesting.
melon,
Yeah,
honeydew, watermelon. Yeah.
Is there any particular reason you prefer the room temperature?
I have really sensitive teeth.
Yeah.
And so cold stuff, like even touching frozen fruit or anything sets my whole body on edge. Like I think it's a borderline phobia. And yeah, so I have really sensitive teeth, but my great grandmother, who's actually my namesake, grandmama or Mama Molly, she, because I've always had sensitive teeth, she used to wake up extra early and put the fruit out in the mornings before really I got up for breakfast. So it would be, room temperature.
Have you encountered a fruit that didn't go as well at the room temperature?
I've never met a fruit I don't like.
That's great to know then. Have you got like a maybe, because we just had some blueberries from Gerard. We're recording this in Gerard Doherty's house. I'm sure by the time this episode drops, an episode with Jared will also be out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you want to give the listeners maybe your top 5 fruits to enjoy at room temperature?
Yeah, okay. Number 1 is probably watermelon. Love watermelon. Can't afford it anymore, but still love it very much.
We are really feeling the squeeze of the cost of living at the moment, aren't we?
Watermelon, raspberries.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, this is a strange one. I've only ever had this in Thailand, but mangosteen.
Mangosteen. Is that different from mango?
It is entirely different. Google it if you can. If you ever see it in an Asian market, eat it. It is delicious. It's like a small purple. It looks like a purple cartoon hand grenade. Like it's it's so cute.
That's
and
great.
then you take the peel off, and it's this white flesh of the fruit with 5 sections. And the flavor is like a combination between like a pear and a kiwi.
Wow.
It is amazing.
Mangosteens.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's great. We're learning new things every day.
Yeah.
And then what? You've got 2 more after the mangosteen.
Probably blueberries and like any other melon.
Yeah.
5. Yeah.
That's like when you can't afford the watermelon, you've got to go for the
other.
other.
On a big, honeydew, not honeydew, the yellow one.
Yeah.
Kick. Yeah.
Have you ever tried the Japanese melon pan, the melon bread?
No.
So I don't think it's made, 0 melons are used in actually making it, but I think it just looks like the fruit melon, because they have those kind of squares, the cracks in the skin or whatever. So I think they cover it in sugar.
Yeah.
And it's all right. Yeah. It's like it's almost like a donut. It's a very sweet bread, and you see it a lot of like festivals and that kind of thing.
That's fun.
I don't mind. They do like a melon soda, which is this great radioactive green color.
Oh yeah.
Which you'd probably have a lot of experience with the whole idea of like a family restaurant. I guess, is Denny's a family restaurant back in the States?
What do you consider like a family restaurant?
So like the New Zealand equivalent of maybe something like a Lone Star, like a big, and like they just do, like burgers and chips and...
Yeah, big feed, accessible financially for big family. Has a kids menu.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like Denny's or like Olive Garden.
Yes, the Olive Garden shit. We don't have those here. But they have an equivalent of that in Japan, and it's kind of a Japanese version. And what I love about them is they'll pretty much all have like a salad buffet where you can just get as much as you want. But they also have a Japanese curry pot that you like. Every single one of them has one of these that you can just take as much as you want. And then they also have a drinks fountain that usually has cola and melon soda, and what
an interesting combo.
Yeah, and the melon soda out of those things usually hits quite different, because something about fountain drinks. I don't know, the carbonation of that hits you differently. It's like the McDonald's Sprite or whatever. People always talk about that. Anyway, I'm getting well away from room temperature fruit.
I do love like an artificial melon flavor though.
Yeah.
Like
Maybe that's what it is.
I'll get like a honeydew. If I'm getting boba, I'll get like a honeydew one.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it.
I know exactly what you mean. All right, so number 3 is a visit from a ladybug. This is an interesting one. Does this happen relatively often for you?
It does. If you're looking, you'll find a ladybug somewhere around where you are. I'm pretty convinced, unless I'm blessed. But
maybe you're like the ladybug whisperer or something.
It might be. Yeah. No, but it's quite exciting. Yeah. I think that for me, it's important to look for those small moments of whimsy, which I think is a bit of a theme in my list, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, those little moments make me really happy. Also, one year, my mom and I, we had an aphid problem with our indoor plants, and my mom bought like a a punnet of ladybugs because they eat aphids, and we just release them into our house.
Imagine that from the aphid's perspective. It's like suddenly just this horde of like
locusts.
Yeah, or just like it'd be the equivalent of us like if someone released like a bunch of tigers or something, because they're a lot bigger than aphids, aren't they?
Yeah.
Wow. So did you like before you released them? Did you have a bit of a play around with the bucket and like stick your hand in the bucket and watch them kind of crawl over your fingers and stuff?
No, well, the thing is that it was like over 500 ladybugs in our house, so I didn't need to play with them in the punnet. They were just in our house.
Wow. That ladybug, because like we were talking before, I'm not really like I'm not a dog person. I'm just not used to animals, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And insects as well. I'm not very good with insects, but as a child, ladybugs were always very safe because they don't bite or they don't do anything malicious to you.
But even if they could, they're cute. So you wouldn't like expect them.
You'd forgive them for it probably. I know, are they a good luck sign in certain cultures? Like I feel like China maybe they're considered...
are red, and that's quite a big color. Yeah.
I think maybe something to do with the amount of dots they have on their back as well. Like there's a certain amount that are considered lucky, and then probably 7. That's the typical lucky number. And so did this horde of ladybugs, did it solve the aphid problem?
I think so, yeah, from my memory.
Yeah.
But we basically forgot about the aphids after that, and then now we just talk about the ladybugs. Like my mom will call it the summer of the ladybugs.
That's cool. I wonder, there was a great Simpsons episode where they were trying to get rid of the rats in New York City, so they released like hawks or something, and then now they had a hawk problem, so then they had to release like a slightly bigger animal to eat all the hawks, and like...
I'm sorry, you're just talking about biodiversity in New Zealand. What do you mean? Like,
wait. As in we don't have it here.
No, as in we had a rabbit problem, and then we brought in whatever stoats, and now we have a stoat problem and a rabbit problem.
We're living that episode of The Simpsons. Oh, wow. But yeah, I was going to say, I wonder if now you've suddenly got a ladybug problem, so you have to bring in like a slightly bigger insect to deal with them, but they're not really that invasive. They don't really destroy crops or anything that I can remember.
Not from what I am aware. I think if they did, Mom would not be keen to have them. Yeah,
it'd be a bit like inviting the fox into the hen house a little bit there. I was going to say as well, my drive up here, I noticed there was a bumblebee in my car, and I have no idea. I suspect it got in around Rakaia somewhere, and I managed to get rid of it in Palmerston. I think it flew out the window, and I just thought that bee is never going to be able to find its way home. Like I basically trafficked a bee halfway down the South Island.
Well, for all you know, it could have been like a bee mule, maybe it had things to get over to Palmerston.
It was the rambling man of bees. Plays his 6-string in pubs to get bored and food. That'll help me sleep a little bit better, because I did feel bad. I thought, oh geez, this is like I don't know if bees have gender, but this bee is basically done for, because they have to go back to their hive, don't they?
Yeah, I think so. I think not all bees entirely do, like, because there are like ground bumblebees that have a slightly different hive structure.
So maybe this one is a bit like Jack Reacher, and it's just gonna like drift and get into adventures and stuff. That helps me sleep a little better at night.
Or it could have been the queen going to be inseminated by as many bees as possible, and that whole hive will die. So there's all possibilities.
There is the duality of bees, right? So number 4 on your list, this is another small moment of whimsy. Heated car seats. They is this a new thing that, like, have you just bought a car?
I've had a series of shit boxes for cars.
I'm still driving one.
Yeah, and I had a car accident actually a few years ago and totaled my 95 Toyota Corolla. Yeah, fully totaled, airbags blew, everything. And then I bought, like, barely newer. I bought a 2005 Volvo, which doesn't have Bluetooth, but it does have heated car seats, and now I'm addicted to it. Like, I don't know how to not have a hot bomb.
Do you feel the cold quite severely?
No, I don't. Here's the thing. I've gotten so used to my heated car seats, I don't even think I feel the heat anymore. Like, I think I'm actively frying my nerve endings.
So it's a bit like, there's a weird comparison to make, but it's a bit like how with heroin, apparently, you just keep upping the dosage or whatever. Did you start with it on the low setting, and then now you're, like, maxing it out when you get into the car?
Absolutely. Yeah, chasing that first heated seat dragon.
Exactly. So I was going to say that will be on your list of any future car you need to have a heated seat.
I think so. Yeah, I've done this to myself.
Hopefully the next one you can get has Bluetooth and the heated seat. Hopefully you don't have to choose between.
Yeah, it's rough. Honestly, aside from the heated seats, my life is rough in my car because it's a Japanese import, so I also only get 3 radio stations.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
it's like, was it AM or FM or something?
It's FM.
Yeah.
So I get ZM, the hits, and some religious channel.
Yeah.
But I will say some of those religious ballads slap.
They do.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, this is like a nice indie stuff, and then we get into Jesus. I'm like, oh, there it is.
Yeah. You're just waiting how many seconds into the song are they going to mention Jesus?
Yeah.
Or him they always use him as like a vague thing. I was going to say as well, does it not have an an aux
No
cable?
aux.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. So that is slumming it. I bought it, what is my car? 96, and thankfully, just before I bought it, they swapped out the head unit, so I did get one that had an aux cable, but like you say, Bluetooth is the way now. Like, it's such a hassle to have to be fumbling around with
Well,
the
nothing
cable.
is made with an aux anymore, and then you have to get the dongle, and
Yeah.
the dongle. First of all, silliest name ever.
It is.
I love it. But it's just whole thing. It's like 3 centimeters long, the easiest cord to lose ever, and like so crucial to your life.
The complete, what is it, the linchpin or whatever the expression is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, anything else you want to add about the heated car seats?
No, I don't think
We
so.
covered it, yeah. So then number 5 on the list is hammocks. Are you quite a camper?
I actually just recently came out as not liking the outdoors.
Ah,
No, I like the outdoors. I just don't like to sleep on the ground or be wet when I don't want to.
Yeah.
So I like being weightless, and I like the active swinging.
Yeah.
And the cocoon aspect.
Yeah. I think hammocks are interesting because depending on the type, they can be quite difficult to get into. Like, there's nothing more dehumanizing than trying, when you get into the hammock and it flips, and then you sort of like your feet hit the ground and you're kind of half in and half out of the hammock, and you're trying to crawl back into it. Like, that's one of the most shameful. I don't think it looks that shameful, but it feels certainly shameful when you're struggling to get into a hammock.
It feels like you've been rejected by an animal
Yeah,
object.
yeah.
Like, not you.
Like it's Excalibur, like sword in the stone.
Yeah. Only the ones in future king
Yeah.
may lounge.
Yeah. But I suspect some of them are getting more modern, because I remember when I was a child, like, it would just be like a piece of fabric that you would tie around 2 trees, but I've seen lately there are ones that have like sticks at the end that kind of extend it, and that I think makes it easier to get in.
Those ones are harder because they're like flat and taut.
Oh, okay.
So they'll kind of like, when you go to sit on them, it'll run away from you a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
So actually you prefer the ones that are like...
I like the wrappy ones.
Yeah.
I think it depends on how high you put them.
That's true.
Because I haven't had too many issues with my own hammock, but also maybe you just have to get to know your hammock.
Yeah, it's an individuality thing. Like, it's like like you're riding a horse or something. Like, whoa, whoa, Nelly.
This one's a bit surly.
Yeah, this one, I got bucked off this one a couple of times.
Yeah.
I've heard the move is to get into a sleeping bag and then get into the hammock. That is apparently quite a cozy experience.
But apparently, because if you're sleeping, I don't know why I know this, but apparently in a sleeping bag, if you're going overnight in a hammock in a sleeping bag, you need an insulator underneath your hammock, because if you have a down sleeping bag, the pressure of your body against the bottom of the hammock completely destroys the insulation thing of the feathers.
That makes
so
sense.
you have to have like a sleeping bag for your hammock.
Oh.
If you're cold. If it's warm out, you'll probably be fine.
Just the hammock is fine. Yeah. I remember seeing like these YouTubers that, like, he'll just jump on the back of a train and go somewhere, and then he'll go from like one coast of the States to the other or something. Yeah. And I remember seeing one episode where he put a hammock up like right next to the beach and had like a tarp thingy over it. And like, it sounds great, but my fear would be like getting jostled awake by someone the next morning, like, hey, you're not supposed to be camping here. Like, what's I think, are you allowed to camp anywhere in the States?
No.
I've heard it's quite strict over there.
Yeah, I don't know how. Yeah, I think if you're gonna be freedom camping, you have to be definitely mindful of where you're going.
Yeah. That was like a relatively controversial topic, though, the whole freedom camping thing recently, because I know it seems like no one's happy who's doing it. Like, I think I saw a post on Reddit about someone saying how sort of like standoffish and rude a lot of the locals were, and then I think the locals don't like it because there's like inconsiderate like campers that leave garbage everywhere, and so it just seems like it's a big mess of like no one's having a good time.
Yeah. Freedom camping is a weird concept because it's just like, it's just van life, right? And you just decide my holidays I'm gonna be like as like never leave the sight of the loved one that I've gone with, or which I think is just a poor choice because neither of you are going to have any fun on your holiday.
You're just stuck in a van with each other.
Yeah, it's too much. But, also, as I said, I don't like being uncomfortable, which is why I'm not, like, there's some outdoors things I'm not into. But yeah, I don't know about the whole freedom camping thing. I think it's cool. I think the idea of it is really cool, but I think, there's issues with especially big touristy areas because in New Zealand we have touristy areas that are not very like geographically large, and so I don't think that there's always the infrastructure to handle
that's true,
all of the freedom campers.
So the I think a lot of comics have the idea of like getting a van and then putting a mattress in the back and using that as your accommodation to like for gigs. I'm gonna guess that doesn't appeal to you at all.
No, it doesn't. I like my creature comforts. I require running water to live. That's always the point, that the wall that I hit is I think like, I could get an NV 200 van and like check the match, and then I think, wait a second, shower and toilets, that's the big issue, and then the state of some of the public toilets and all that is a bit like I would do like an RV if I could like fully kit it out and be like, this is my tiny home on wheels. Absolutely can. But if I'm just living in a van, sorry, no.
Just a converted van. The other thing that stops me as well is I'll see those guides and it'll be like 40 minutes of like how this person turned a van, and then like as soon as they start doing any electrical wiring, they're like, I had to like run the cables through like a converter, and they're using all this jargon that I don't understand. Like, no, I don't, I'm not handy.
Yeah,
not at all. So that was number 5. Number 6, I quite like this one. Pantry containers.
It just screams opulence, does it not?
It's rare that someone uses a word that I don't know. What is opulence? Is that
opulence is like
wealth,
but like flamboyant wealth. Like you're opulent if you're like dripping in jewels and like outwardly wealthy and
interesting. Wow. So we were talking about this a little bit about the pedantry of correcting people when they use language. We could maybe do a small segue into this, because if you've seen, I'm assuming if you're listening to the podcast, you've seen my act before. I have a routine about having a big vocabulary doesn't really serve you because you're only as effective as your audience, really. And if people don't know the word, then it's might as well just be in another language, or it might as well be gibberish. And so you were saying, and you actually, I saw you in action last night correcting people on, like, I think, was it you corrected someone with the difference between a hysterectomy and
getting your tubes tied.
They're different. They're different operations, right? Yeah. And
here's the thing, I'm still deciding whether or not I'm the asshole for that. But I think being correct, maybe this just shows how I was raised. I think being correct is important. And I think especially when we talk like about factual things, especially about health, I think it's important. And I love to joke about it. Quite a lot of my jokes are about women's health as well. But that being said, with vocabulary too, I think that if we don't use it, we'll lose it. I think words are really important in my field because I'm studying to be a primary teacher. We talk a lot about child-friendly language, which I, at the risk of sounding a bit extreme, I'm opposed to that term.
Me too.
Because I think that if we set the bar low for our young people, they can feel that. And I think that if we're not, I think high expectations are important. And I think that if you witness maybe more advanced words being used in context, you learn them. That's how we learn language, is in context.
Yeah, that's exactly how I learned. Because the joke I start off to say, I read a lot of books as a child. And that's the thing is like, you encounter a lot of words, you have no idea what it means, so you just kind of guess what you think it means, and then you eventually look it up later or something. But I think kids are smarter than we give them credit for. Like, learning a new word is usually just like they say, what does that word mean? And then you tell them the meaning and they go, okay. And then they might use it, they might not. Like, it seems weird to, like, try and shield them from long words or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I had a follow-up point to this. I saw an interesting argument about slang words being corrected, like, you know how someone will use Pacific when they mean specific?
Mm-hmm.
And there is an argument for people saying, well, you knew what they meant, so, like, don't be pedantic about it. But I don't know how I feel about that, because I'm a bit like you. I'm like, well, words have to mean what they mean. Like, we can't just let, like, this word can mean whatever the hell we want. Like, don't get me wrong, like, it is like, the word the word they were looking for when they used Pacific instead of specific. But I'm in such a I don't know how to feel about the idea of people saying, oh, it's fine, like, language evolves and slang words mean new things. And I don't know, just as a teacher, what is your feeling on slang changing language?
I think slang exists no matter, like, what time you're looking at, and I think that does change. I think that I think slang is fun. I think that I like to take the piss out of myself a little bit for not being fully up with what's going on, because I'm not on TikTok. I will hear a lot of the slang that I'll learn from the children that I work with, and I'll be like, whoa, and then I'll go home and research what it actually means, and I'll be like, extra whoa, that is so intense. But no, I like slang. I think it's fun, and I think that it's an important. There is like official speak, or like not professional speak, but there's more. We'll see. This is so weird because I have so many words, but I just lose them as well. So there's casual speak and there's non-casual speak, and I think that, like, melding the two is fine. I think it's more about knowing that there's an understanding of the difference, and having a decent amount of vocabulary at your disposal. And that's not to say that people who, like, don't have a huge vocabulary aren't, like, intelligent, or their opinions and their thoughts around an issue are, like, don't matter. But I think that introducing children to like a wider range, that there's no reason to shield them from that. Like, there's no,
I'm with you on that one. I think because I had another experience where I performed stand-up for some children, and it was a part of this thing called Kids Day Out variety show, and I forget the exact correct term, so I may butcher this slightly, but they were children that have, like, not necessarily learning difficulties, but they just needed some extra attention from, like, the teacher aides and whatever the correct term for that is. That's what they were. And so I had friends be like, are they going to get wordplay? And, like, I've never had such an attentive audience who got the jokes and came up to me afterwards telling me which joke they liked. Like, I've never had that from like, adults, you know what I mean? Like, they were, and I was like, man, kids are, like, a lot brighter than we give them credit for sometimes, especially with words.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, I really value high expectations, and I think that when you set a bar for young people, or for anyone, they'll often meet that bar. And if you set it low, like, you can feel when someone has low expectations for you. You know what I mean? And I think that, like, not only is that a blow to your own self-efficacy, but it's also, like, I think it's detrimental to all parties, to be honest.
No, I'm with you. I reckon shoot for the stars, right? Get them to learn the long words, because, like, it didn't, like I said in a bit, like, the only thing it does is, like, the people around them might not know the words, but, like, I think. But
it's like a virus, they don't know now, but then, you've started a system now that maybe they'll teach their friends.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it's great. I think we should definitely encourage that. So that was a great little tangent. Where do we start with that?
We were talking about
opulence, opulence. So that's my word for the day. Opulence. That's a great. I like how that sounds too. Opulence.
It's used a lot in drag culture as well.
Really? Like the character they're portraying is opulent.
Or you'd be like, she's opulent.
Yeah. Oh, great. Well, that's the word for the week for the Ruddle Maniacs out there. Or the Molly Maniacs as well. That's good. That follows quite nicely as well. But you're right though. When you take that level from taking the cashew nuts out of the plastic bag and putting them into their own container, you do feel very opulent and very fancy.
Yeah.
Is this a recent development in your life?
It was so my partner and I bought a house 2 years ago.
Ah, congratulations. You got out.
It is, well, I mean, sort of, but like with what's going on right now, it's actually a lot more painful than renting was.
You got to be the landed gentry.
Yeah.
What cost?
You know that landlord crevice between the like wall and your stove? That's now my responsibility.
That's not your problem.
There's no landlord crevices in my life. They're all my crevice.
You just can't pour bacon grease down the drain anymore because it's your problem.
There's no, I wonder where that went. That's none of my business. It's all my business. But one of my first goals is we had a proper pantry. I was like, I just like, now that we're homeowners, I want these containers, and of course it like fell so low on the priorities list, and we finally got them just recently, actually. But the issue with it is that now, because I am a little bit spacey, I will forget what items I've put in the things, and so like
are they like not open? They're not transparent ones.
They are transparent, but like we lost the rice recently, and my partner was like, "Where's the rice?" And I was like, "I swear we have rice. I know we have rice." And he was like, "Is it one of the containers?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. I wouldn't have put it into one of the containers." I did in fact put it into the containers.
Yeah. One thing that makes me feel relatively opulent is I've started washing my rice before I cook it now.
Oh, so it's actually like yummy now and not just like a gloopy mess.
It's like I didn't realize that I could taste the difference until I didn't wash it one time, and I went, "Oh, this is chalkier for some reason." So like, that's
very starchy.
One of my middle class. Do you follow Middle Class Fancy on Instagram?
I don't.
They're like, it'll be it's just like, you know when like your friend got like an above ground pool or something like that. It's like that's Middle Class Fancy, and it would be like a picture of the dad who's like real stoked that he just got like a pool table or something, and like that is a delightful space to be in, the Middle Class Fancy. Like with the, I think containers in the pantry is right up that alley. So number 7 on your list is the Kindle, which comes back to words, talking about words before. What are you reading at the moment?
Oh, I have absolute garbage taste. I read like fantasy romance books.
Oh, cool. So is it The Court of Thorns?
Well, I saw one of your recent guests read The Court of Thorns. Currently, I'm reading another series of the same author called Throne of Glass. Okay, yeah. Which, frankly, hot take, I think is her best series out of her 3 series. Right. I'd rank them right now, but I'm not looking to get attacked by the SJM fandom.
I've heard that it's posting online can be a little bit of a minefield for those kind of things, but
I just lurk. That's why.
Well, that was I think that was what Pia was talking about. That are they like smutty, like fantasy romance books? Or
so she writes. There's 3 of series out now of her, Sarah J. Maas, and they're in like varying degrees of smuttiness. Yeah. So all of them have romance in them, and I would say there's like a clear ranking of which ones are more plot driven to the other ones. Yeah. And I would say the series I'm reading right now is the most like plot driven and much more high fantasy. Yeah. And the rest is, the other 2 are very romance driven.
I didn't peg you for like a high fantasy reader. Do you?
Love high fantasy.
Oh, okay. What other kind of stuff have you read?
One of my favorite books is The Name of the Wind by.
Oh, is that Rothfuss?
Yep, Rothfuss.
Really?
Yeah, love it.
I heard you're waiting a long time for the next book in that series. It's like almost rivaling George Martin with the new how long it's people have been. What is Name of the Wind? Was it a standalone or is it a series?
It's a series. I'm trying to remember the names of the other books in the series. It's been quite a long time since I read it. It's one of those books where I don't really reread books. Yeah. But I just loved it. I just read this book called The Binding by Bridget Collins.
Oh, I've not heard of that one.
That one's not as high fantasy, but yeah, anything to do with magic, I'm keen on. But I'm trying to declutter my life, so I got my Kindle. Yeah. And best feature of it, which I don't know if you use an e-reader or if you read much.
Just whatever's on my phone or my laptop,
you can highlight a word and it'll immediately bring up the definition for you. Oh, great. It's amazing.
That's awesome, yeah. That would have been really useful when I was a child.
Yeah, right.
Because I remember, seeing a word and then sounding it out and just kind of being like, I don't know what that means. And then years later learning the meaning of it and being like, oh, that changes the sentence quite a lot. Wait, despondency means bad? Or so, something like those lines.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. And so then I guess the potentially controversial, are you a Brandon Sanderson fan at all?
Someone was talking to me about Brandon Sanderson recently.
Yeah.
I don't think I've read any of the stuff, but I've heard things.
It's very it depends on what kind of magic you like. Like if you like the magic that inspires a sense of wonder and awe, Brandon's probably not your taste.
Okay.
He's more like, all the rules of his magic system and they're very organized, and for the most part everything that the characters could do with the magic. And the satisfying thing of his books come out of you kind of know what the characters can do, so you're trying to predict how they're going to get out of this bind using the powers that they have available to them.
Oh.
And he usually does these big, so Mistborn is his biggest, well, I don't know if it's his biggest, but it's definitely the one people read the most, and it's all the powers is to do with metal, so people in that, they can they basically eat little flakes of metal, and that's the cost, and they call it burning when they I guess they sort of
metabolize it.
Yeah, metabolize it. And then one person could, push on any metal object, so they could throw a bunch of marbles into the air and then push them away, and that would be an attack, to get people off them or something. And they also sort of fly by they'll throw a coin at the ground and they'll push down on the coin, and then by the time the coin reaches the earth, because the earth is a lot heavier than them, it launches them upwards, so they'll kind of fly by I guess leaping like a kangaroo. And so I think there's about 7 or 8 different ones, and Brandon Sanderson stuff is very symmetrical, and there's always a big almost like a mandala of he's got an icon for each type of magic, and it's very I have that kind of brain that very much appeals to me.
That's quite interesting. I like that. It sounds like Avatar: The Last Airbender, but for adults.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely could see the certain parts of Avatar that would appeal to people, the 4 kind of harmonious
the elemental
ones. And but there's not often the sense of wonder and magic that you get from other series. So that's where people fall off, is sometimes they go, it's not fun if I know everything they can do. So that's kind of
I see.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think I'd be keen. I'll have a look into it.
Definitely, that would be the one I recommend to start with, is Mistborn. And then he's got a much bigger series called The Way of Kings, which is massive books, several, I don't know, what is that, 5-6 inches kind of deep, and this one is it's Mistborn is the world is at least a little bit similar to ours. It's very gothic architecture, and the big fantasy thing is that I think it's too close to the sun, so there are volcanoes that spit ash into the air, which is kind of cools the sun a little bit, and that's how people kind of survive on the planet. And then the Way of Kings, they live on this planet that's pretty much constantly experiencing big storms, like rain and lightning and stuff like that. And so one thing he does quite well is he comes up with a world that they live in kind of thing, and
world building.
Yeah, he's very good at that. So but then no, it's not called Way of Kings, it's the Stormlight Archive, that's what it is. And their magic system is that they can summon these big it's a big claymore sword, but it's as light as a feather, and they can sort of they can disappear and reappear as they will, and they can also summon a suit of armor that's unbreakable, that kind of thing. And then they do have things like the push and pull powers of Mistborn, and it's a massive it's 5 or 6 books long, and they're all massive books. So
wow, it's a real investment.
Yeah, it really is.
Which is why the Kindle is so great. Yeah, I don't have room for all that shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, for the listeners out there as well, if you're into fantasy, then Mistborn would be the dipping the toe into the water I'd recommend there.
Okay, cool.
Any other books you want to talk about before we move on?
I'm all right. I don't have many hot takes about my books. It's really to read and relax.
Yeah, it's a decompress thing for you.
Yeah, and so it's not I get really into them, but I don't have much to say about them because I am aware that I don't have many hot takes.
I'm very much of the opinion that not everyone needs to know what I think about things.
Oh, I'm not of that opinion. I don't cannot relate. Sorry.
Just with books. You're happy to stay in your lane with books, but then other things, I got some opinions here.
Yeah.
I've recently been reading the Reacher series because they're you pretty much know nothing bad's going to happen in them, and so it's a very comforting read because you're like, well, Jack Reacher's not going to die. Like, the people on his team might get killed and maimed and stuff, but there's been like 30 books now, so you're like, well, he's going to get through it eventually.
I like to get my heart ripped out by books.
Oh yeah.
I like to weep. Yeah.
Is there anyone that has given you that kind of experience?
This series that I'm talking about books. The series that I'm reading now. There are a few characters that we really fall in love with. And I think there have even been parts where no one has died, but like you can like really feel the connection that was built between, especially friendships. Like there's some really wonderful friendships in this book that I'm reading. And yeah,
it goes south, and then that.
No, not even just goes south. Sometimes like I'll even weep when ththings are just like really, that connection.
Right,
is really
right,
deep
yeah,
and special. Yeah,
I've heard there are a few moments like that, and because the thing about Sanderson's work is like he was doing the multiverse thing before Marvel kind of made it like a big thing. Like
before it was cool.
Yeah. He was planting seeds of like his books being all connected like 20 years ago, and now it's called the Cosmere, and it's like because now we're like 20 years into it, you're starting to see the characters cross over, and so like one character in another book, he does a salute that's only known by like the members of, it was a team called Bridge 4. They were in like in the army, and their job was literally to carry bridges to put across big chasms, and like so as you can imagine, they're always getting maimed and shot at, and you know it's like a dangerous thing to be in, and like people were just like gobsmacked that like, oh my god, he knows the thing from what.
So everyone turns into a wee like detective.
yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
They try to figure out why this character, and so I think we're now starting to see a lot of these payoffs that have been set up for like 20 years, which is just great. So then number 8, Suncatchers in the Wing. I actually don't know what a suncatcher is. What is a suncatcher?
A suncatcher is something that you hang in your window. Often they'll like cast rainbows when the sun hits them. Yeah. So yeah, they're just wee prisms, clear prisms. Sometimes they'll be colored, but I like just the clear prisms.
Yeah.
And my bedroom has a very small window that's north facing, but in the morning when the sun hits it, my whole bedroom erupts in rainbows.
Are you like a napped person during the day?
Only if I'm really depressed.
Oh, okay. So that's the canary in the mine shaft there. I've sort of, I think this is just a getting older thing, is I've now started to be able to sleep during the day, which I've never been able to before. And yeah, that whole idea of sleep, like we're in a nice big corner kind of window here. Sleeping next to that kind of window is like, just when something about the heat I think is nice. And I think the heat in combination with the sun catchers would be an amazing combination.
It's really nice. Yeah, it's throwing a hammock in there, and you're like basically in heaven.
reading
I do
the
like
Kindle.
a siesta. I like a midday.
Yeah,
I'll do a midday rest. Yeah, especially like but I won't sleep. I'll usually like Kindle or like lounge. Yeah. So
you're just in low power mode. You're not like completely shut off. Yeah. No, that's I can definitely appreciate that. So then number 9, phone calls while I do the dishes is I pretty much do the same thing, but I have a parasocial relationship where I just put on a podcast while I'm doing like menial tasks. Is it specifically the dishwashing that you enjoy, or is it the combination of like your hands are busy but you've got something to sort of entertain you?
I think it's something to entertain me while I do a task that I hate. I hate the dishes.
Okay.
I really do, but talking to the people that I love makes them a lot nicer, and I'll keep doing it. So I think I often need 2 forms of stimulus to get anything done. And I am just frankly too yappy to just listen to a podcast while I do things.
You need to be
like
contributing to, That's great. Do you have designated people that are like your dishwashing buddies, or is it just you kind of see like, who's online?
I would say I have my good friend Amy. She and I, we do a bit of chatting, but also we have like way different work schedules, so it depends. I talk to my mom a lot when I do the dishes, and then another good friend of mine, Rachel, who's she's actually studying at Yale.
Wow, that's quite prestigious, right?
Yeah.
What is Yale known? Is it a law school?
I don't know what it's known for, and don't test me on what she's doing. She's doing like divinity studies, which is quite interesting. So she she's gonna be so mad at me where I'm like, it's that classic thing. You know how people say that they like don't know what their best friend does? Yeah, that's that. She's explained it to me and I like get it. Yeah. But if I try to explain it, it's gonna sound just really silly.
Divinity studies. That feels like something religion-y to me, but
so we have a pretty big representation of the Unitarian church where I'm from, which is actually non-denominational.
What does that mean?
It means that there's no specific deity. So it's more about having a shared sort of sacred space, but not for anyone or anything in particular, aside from like coming together and having good intentions and energy. That
always seemed like the thing that I could, because I feel like people are so black and white with people like, oh, religion's fucking stupid and anyone that does religion is dumb, but you're like, it does a lot of things. Like community is good for people. Like
it is. Well, and I think faith and religion are different things as well. Like I think as when you look at something in like a sociological sort of side of things, religion is done. It's what we've used to like create rules to like make sure society runs okay. You know.
Yeah.
And you'll find in most organized religions, there are very similar sentiments when you look at like any holy book and like, like, show grace to others, don't kill, general, like, good life rules. Yeah. And I think, so I'm not someone who practices any specific religion, but I think that like spirituality and like having grace for the people around you is important. And I see the benefit of the people reap.
That feels like a very common thing that a lot of people of our generation and younger are kind of into, because I see a lot of people that refer to themselves as being spiritual but not as being religious.
Do you know the term agnostic?
Yeah. I suppose that that just sums it up pretty much right there. But that's what was it called again, sorry? The non-denominational...
Oh, non-denominational, Unitarian
Unitarian,
church.
Right.
Yeah.
I know I've heard the Simpsons reference
Probably.
before, which I feel like, the joke was, it was Flanders, they were playing a video game where you were shooting, like, sinners and turning them into Christians, and someone pops up and Bart, like, shoots him, and he's like, got him, and then you hear the kid be like, no, you just made him a Unitarian. So I finally get that joke, like, 20 years later.
That's the power of language.
Words are important. Yeah. Oh, this has been very illuminating for many reasons. So we've got one more, which is home manicures. So tell us more about home. Like, is this you doing it on other people?
It's me on myself.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. This one's just a silly one, but this year I knew going back to study I wouldn't have a lot of money, but I really like having my nails done, and so I got a little like gel nail kit.
Yeah.
And now I like.
Do you have the little light that like? Yeah. Okay.
It's not just I'm not all goopy all the time.
Yeah. Have you noticed that when you put the first coat of like clear coat on, it kind of burns?
Yeah, so that's like the heat of it. Yeah.
That was what I experienced.
I kind of like it.
So I've got black nails on right now.
Yeah, are they gel? They look like gel. Did they go on the light?
I'm not really too sure. It's just on my nails.
Well, no, but do you like when you got it done?
Yeah.
Did you put your
Yes, it was under the light.
Okay, so it is gel.
Yes, and I felt the burn when it went on. But
did the person who did it warn you that it was going to happen?
Yes, I was warned. But even then, you still go, oh, okay.
You're like, oh my god, am I allergic to opulence?
Yeah. So then, you got the kit. How often would you say you kind of do like a is it like a treat yourself kind of thing? Or
I do it like, well, now I'm addicted to it. So like when I see my naked nails, I'm like, ugh. But also because I'm not very good at it, I really abuse my my nail beds. But yeah, I think I probably do it like once every week and a half when I get a bit tired.
Yeah.
But it's been fun for me because I have like serious commitment issues when it comes to like body modification, even my nails.
Right.
And so like when I go and pay to have it done, I find myself like emming and ahhing about what color to do, and I get all like panicky, and it's supposed to be a relaxing experience, but I just am stressed the whole time.
That is a lot of pressure.
It's really not. You're pandering a little bit.
Bear in mind, you just saw a comedy show of mine that's called Panic at the Buffet, where I talked about 5 scenarios that I had I felt the pressure and panic.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, you're right. It is a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Thank you for validating my feelings.
Exactly.
But yeah, so at home I've been able to I can look at all my colors, take my time.
Yeah.
And also I've been experimenting with different designs,
Yeah,
which I would usually be afraid that once I had paid for it and gone home I wouldn't like it. And I'd be like, oh, I've already spent all this money. Basically, the moral of the story is I'm cheap, but I like pretty things.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing it myself.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's now that you can get these at-home kits, it's why not? Because it comes back to the whole having a menial task. You put a TV show on, call someone on the phone, and do your nails. So it's why not, right?
Yeah.
Your hands are busy.
A little bit of self-care.
Yeah, exactly. I love having, because I've gotten into video gaming lately where I'm just playing the same game that I've played before, but it's more of a mechanical thing. I just want my hands and my brain to be sort of just on it's if my brain waves were being measured, it would be they would be just above being off, or when my brain is off or whatever. And that I find I can hit peak. I can hit peak zen when I'm when my hands and my brain kind of occupied with very low requirements, and then I've got some kind of audio stimulation, like a TV show or whatever. So I can absolutely see the appeal of doing your nails and putting a movie on or something like that. So yeah, very cool. Well, that's the list. We're coming up on an hour now, so that's basically perfect timing. We couldn't have timed that better if we tried. I appreciate you giving up your time on, what is this, a Thursday morning, I think?
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
And the people out there, if you want to get more of Molly, they can find you on your performers page on Facebook.
Yeah, it's a stupid little name. We're still working on it. It's on Instagram at...
Instagram, sorry.
No, that's okay. At mforce_entertainment, because I'm a comedian and MC, so...
Yeah,
that's me. I'm going to try and post a bit more content to get myself out there. But yeah, mforce_entertainment on Instagram.
That's great. Are you also you're producing a little bit of stuff, maybe by the time this
comes
out?
A little bit, yeah. So going to try and produce a bit more. We have a really great venue here in Dunedin called Moons.
I love Moons. Well, I haven't seen it yet, but it looks awesome.
They're amazing, great room for comedy, and just really a great business altogether.
Yeah.
There are other really great events that they have there too. They're really into being a part of the performing arts space in Dunedin.
Yeah.
And so keep an eye on that for shows that are coming up. Actually, Taylor Ruddle designed my poster for my show.
I did.
I've used it one time. I want to make it into stickers.
Full moon comedy.
Yeah.
The little moon showing its butt to the viewer.
Cheeky little moon.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up there. Appreciate your time, Molly, and I'm sure people will hear from you again in the future.
Hope so. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to Ruddle Me This. Don't forget to hit subscribe and leave me a review on your favourite podcast platform. You can find me on social media at Taylor Ruddle Comedy on all the major platforms. You can also join patreon.com/Taylor Ruddle Comedy for free, which gets you access to all sorts of extras and behind the scenes content, as well as allows you to communicate directly with me and let me know what you think of the show. Tune in again next Monday for another episode of Ruddle Me This, and until then, Ruddle her out.
This has been a Tape Deck Media production. Thank you for listening.